Howdy, howdy. We are live on another Friday night, and we have not one, not two, not even three or four, but 5 episodes of Star Trek Prodigy to discuss.
Let's just
And
always do 5 episodes from here on out.
even if only one episode of Star Trek comes out that week, we'll just talk about 4 other
We'll
episodes
grab
of
four
something else.
others. Yeah.
They might not even be Star Trek. They might be who the hell knows, but
Yeah, we've talked about other stuff. There's going to be a Babylon 5 episode in there. We're gonna cover Lex. We're finally getting there.
it is a lot in these 5 half-hour episodes of Prodigy. A lot does happen, and I see there's
Mm-hmm.
already people in the live audience, so I think we should go ahead and get the show started and get into all of that goodness.
Yep.
I'm Fatheree,
This is Dave.
and this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 296th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. Tonight, we are talking about Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, episodes 11 through 15. So these are going to be the kids get back on the Protostar and have adventures with Chakotay to get them back to Janeway. It's that part of the season.
It's also the, I guess, the 3/4 point. It's we've definitely crossed the halfway mark, and we're moving towards end game, and so this is the escalation that'll build up to the final 5.
Yeah, and we get some fun Planet of the Week, episode of the week type adventures with some Klingon and tribble action in the middle in there. So it'll be a lot to unpack in one moment. We do need to give a big thank you and shout out, per usual, to the wonderful people over in the Tex-Trek Patreon who make the weekly live show possible. So thank you so much, Starfleet Sohel, Kagas Eternal, Crazy Dutchy, Joanne Robertson, John Dot, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Ben Ginium, Arthur Lamoureux, and our anonymous supporters. We like to celebrate with our patrons by having monthly watch parties. We just had a lot of fun with a double feature, actually, recently. We did Strange New Worlds, Those Old Scientists, the crossover with Lower Decks, followed by the baseball episode of DS9, taking me out to the Hollow Suite.
Jill picked some good ones. That was a great time.
But we should have a good outing in August. I don't know exactly what is going to be on the menu. It's going to be up to our Division 14 patron Joel. He's going to select an episode, so he's got 900 plus treks to choose from. Maybe he'll let us know in the live show tonight what we're what. I know he really wants to show everyone that movie that has like a lot of Trek actors in it. I think he'll remind us the name, but I think we should just toss that on some night in the Tex-Trek Discord and just do a public screening of that for everyone sometime. So, but I definitely have a lot of fun with the monthly watch parties. That's always like a fun group that shows up. So if people want to participate in those, you can come into the Tex-Trek Patreon as little as $2 a month. If you can afford to be more generous, there's some additional perks as well. But we do appreciate it, and all goes back into the show, and it goes a long way to just cover the subscriptions, the expenses, the technical equipment, all of that stuff. But we really appreciate the people who chip in and help out over there. So, and if you can help out on Patreon, you can always super chat during the live shows on YouTube, or subscribe and share. It goes a long way to help us get out there and continue to grow. And just a little bit more housekeeping. Dave, there was a little bit of Star Trek news this week. I don't know if you saw, but a bit of casting for the Academy show.
I think I saw, but it had the effect of I was like, all right, they look cool, and I sort of moved on when I didn't immediately recognize the names of any of their previous projects, but that's not unusual for me with the sort of the younger cadet
Yeah.
actors
We have
because I'm not seeing whatever shows they're on. What do we know, Fathery?
we have Kareem Diane from One of Us is Lying and Zoe Steiner from Significant Others. So I don't think they'll be as big of the focus as the three actors that were announced last week: Kyrus Brooks, Bella Shepherd, and George Hawkins. I think those three are going to be like our big three, like our
Mm-hmm.
Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kareem Diane and Zoe Steiner are going to be like our Sulu and Chekhov, or they're going to be more of like support roles, I think. But
I don't
our big ones are the ones we got last week.
I don't know if this is just the photos that they've got that are probably their what do you call the an actor's photo?
A
Uh,
headshot.
yeah, their headshots or what. But to me, these actors look a little bit older by like a few years than the trio from last week. I don't know if maybe that was a just a misread on my part. But like I'm like, are these upperclassmen or are they? I don't know. The other ones just had a little sort of more youthful look to them.
And some of these people are probably going to be aliens. Some of these people are probably going to have prosthetics. So
Oh, that's a good point. That's a
at
good
least I
point.
hope
So we
so.
have.
I want to have a real diverse cast in the Academy show.
It is funny how like makeup can really hide age sometimes. The dude who was like the old man from the company in RoboCop was also the co-pilot in Last Starfighter,
Yeah.
and he didn't have the feel of like an old person in that. He was just kind of like
Nope.
a veteran pilot.
Aaron Eisenberg was in his 20s when he started playing Nog on Deep Space Nine. Everyone treated
Yeah.
him like a little kid because he was standing next to 14-year-old Sirach Lofton.
Right, and he has a small stature, so it kind of added to the thing.
Yeah, when you're shorter than the 14-year-old, everyone I guess assumes you're a child also. So
Which is not super cool, but hopefully they're better about that now. But yeah, who knows exactly who they'll end up playing? Anyway, they're both pretty people. I'll give them that for sure. I suspect well cast.
but I think we'll get a lot more Star Trek news in the coming weeks. A lot more Academy news, I should say. San Diego Comic-Con is only 2 weeks away right now from day of recording. There will be a huge Star Trek Universe panel Saturday, July 27th in Hall H. We're expecting to see stuff from Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, and Section 31. I think they're all going to have clips and or trailers. And then I think we're going to get a lot of details on Starfleet Academy. Like when I say details, I mean like characters' names and a little bit more specific. Like, is Mary Wiseman going to be in it or not, and how big of a role is she going to have? And
Right.
I think we might start seeing like what aliens these people are playing, if any, or like what just like some little tidbits about like the characters because they're going to start shooting very soon. So I think like as soon as these actors are, I think they'll have these people there to do like something on stage at San Diego, and then I think they're sending them up to Toronto to start shooting immediately. So a lot of Academy news to come in the near future.
I hope they're all playing Hordas.
just
Um,
just a whole Horda class, yeah.
yeah. It's like that'd be a dope class.
I get Paul Giamatti, and he's just like he's like the old grandfather Horda.
He'll be like, I can't understand your accent. Could you just burn the message into the floor again?
But to tie it back to Prodigy, there's also going to be a Prodigy appearance at San Diego Comic-Con. They're going to have their own panel on Sunday, July 28th, and they're going to do a screening of one of the episodes we're talking about tonight, Cracked Mirror, Season 2, Episode 14.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
And they
yeah.
said they're giving away some items. So if you're at San Diego Comic-Con, get to the Prodigy screening on Sunday, July 28th, 10 a.m.
I feel like that's a particularly good episode to probably watch with an audience. That's some fun stuff.
And we will be doing a stream that day. I'm announcing it now, but Sunday, July 28th, believe it'll be 2 p.m. Central Time. But we'll be doing a live stream to break down any and all news from San Diego Comic-Con, including whatever the hell happens during that joint Star Trek Doctor Who panel that's going to happen Saturday night, which they're not going to announce a crossover, but it might just be like a promotional thing. But, who knows? It might be something cool might come out of that.
You're sure they're not going to announce a crossover?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident, but I think Russell T Davies might be like, who knows? We'd love to do it someday, but
Right. If a sort of test the water, get the ball rolling, see what's up.
But I think this is just more of like they were both going to be there for different stuff that same day, and they're like, hey, let's just do like a panel together. So.
I'm just highlighting quotes from our audience that are people who do think it's going to be crossover. Sohail, Joel. I don't know if they're joking around or not, but I'll be excited to hear whatever they say. I'm looking forward to the coverage y'all are gonna have.
And I think that's all we got for housekeeping. I should also say that Aaron was unable to be here, but these shows are also being distributed on the Drawn to Trek podcast, part of the Trek Geeks Network. And Dave, if you are ready, shall we begin with our first episode, Season 2, Episode 11, Last Flight of the Protostar Part 1. They kind of do like this two-part thing here at Last Flight of the Protostar Part 1 and Part 2, which is like the getting Chakotay off the island two-parter.
Right. Yeah, I'm ready.
So our first one, written by Deandra Pendleton Thompson and directed by Roland Lee and Andrew L. Schmidt. The synopsis reads, thanks to Wesley Crusher's timely intervention, the cadets find the See, they're not even cadets. Who writes the stuff? What it should say is the Academy hopefuls find the protostar, but the ship's marooned guardian isn't eager for their assistance. They find Chakotay on planet Isida, eating the fish eggs on the plasma fruit and hanging out with Hollow Janeway, and he's not happy to see these galactic raiders that he saw in prison 10 years earlier from his perspective.
Before they did that, they showed that sort of a montage showing the passage of time of him, get up, fish, work on the solar panels on the ship. Beard gets a little bit more gray, fish, solar panels, et cetera, right?
More dead crew chess pieces.
Oh yeah,
that's what he does to decompress at the end of the day. Is he carves a little wooden figure of one of his fallen crew members.
I actually really liked it though. I like stuff like that gives this cartoon some gravitas. I kind of really felt for him, and he went from being just this is a guy that we know is supposed to be Chakotay, but I haven't really seen a lot of his personality or a lot of depth to him yet, and that was one of the scenes I guess I'd say I was hoping for, something like that to convey the weight of this all.
I like how much Chakotay stuff that we get here, and that I'm enjoying Chakotay. I know that he has in the past he's been kind of an unpopular character among some fans. I've never, I guess, fully hated the character Chakotay. I've just I think his biggest crime is just he's occasionally boring or bland, but I feel like
he's got that, and he also has built into the character a little bit of white boy interpretation of I'm talking about the writers here of Native American mysticism and stuff like that that also kind of he's saddled with. That was not the actor's call. That was
although he brings his own issues to the conversation.
Sure,
but,
yeah.
None of that, which I think is going to be relevant to these 5 episodes, though. But I like the presentation of Chakotay. They do give him an arc of kind of to repair the ship. We got to repair this broken man, and it is something I feel like we've seen a lot of. It's very Luke Skywalker and the other Star franchise. Infamously as a broken old man in a recent movie. But Picard did something kind of similar when they had broken Picard on the Vintage until someone young comes to him and kind of gets him re-engaged in the universe, and we get this kind of the same thing here, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. He's like gruff and not into what the Protostar kids want to do. He certainly doesn't like them when they like call the ship theirs. He's
But
a
he's
little
he's given up. He's basically like there's
yeah.
no hope, and the reason why he's given up is partly because he thought the living construct was just too dangerous to risk coming in contact with Starfleet. But also like yeah, with no no protocore, no antimatter and the warp drive, it does seem very dire. I think like the big theme of the season that I think has been apparent from early on in the first 5 episodes. But I think like kind of the big theme is just like maintaining hope during like the most like dire times, is not giving up hope, and Chakotay has given up hope.
You know what else
He's
though?
retired.
You know what else, Fatheree? I don't know if I haven't thought about this, but I was just now thinking that there's also a thematic about rebirth. So you could say that Chakotay has a sort of spiritual or rebirth. Murph has a physical transformation. Zero has a physical transformation. So we may also see people, rebirth change. It may not be so specific as rebirth, but maybe I'll kind of keep a watch and see if that's showing up in other characters and thematics. Um, but yeah, they put the characters like you're saying into some pretty dire situations. In fact, these episodes, well, the fifth of this batch concludes with a pretty dire situation, Essentia and all that stuff. We'll talk about it when we get to it. But yeah, it's they're putting them through the ringer a little bit.
For this first episode, I really liked having the Protostar back. They destroyed the Infinity in the last episode, when the ziggurat got attacked by
Mhm.
the
The
not
loom.
the not the Sentinels from the Matrix, but the Loom. Uh, but here we got the Protostar back, so it's kind of cool that like uh, we have the Protostar in season 2 before like the kids have it in season 1, because like their whole thing is here like, oh, we got to get the ship and send it back. Uh, so it's like from the ship's perspective, this is like their first adventures on it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's weird.
and it's also weird, like when they get Chakotay back, he's going to be like 10 years older than everyone else for the rest of his life because he spends 10 years on this planet.
Yeah, every once in a while in fiction they'll do that kind of thing, especially in science fiction. I mean, because it can lend some weight where even if something is going to be undone, if you say someone has lived a whole lifetime in some alternate world, or that there was 5 years dealing with the fallout of was it Thanos in the snap in the Marvel movies. Well, then okay, yeah, it gets undone, but the weight of it is still theirs for people to bear, and
Yeah,
so we know.
the consequences still have some weight.
Yeah, and Chakotay also has he visually looks different. He got some gray. They allowed for it.
I love the cowboy hat. That looked pretty cool.
Yeah, it's the screenshot you've got up of him right now is like as cool as he's ever looked. It's a look. He looks like the man with no name. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think. Initially, he essentially locks the kids out of the house, and then
Yeah,
kind
he
of
doesn't let them in until like the storm starts, and it's kind of like Hollow Janeway was softer on them than he was initially. Like
right.
he liked was this what Chakotay always wanted? Like I wanted to be alone on an island with Janeway. This was actually my
Mm.
lifelong dream, and all of you kids have ruined it. I'm joking, but it's interesting. These 5 episodes they give a lot to the Janeway Chakotay shippers. They
Yeah, without
what
quite saying anything definite.
Right. I which I think was the right approach, which I guess we'll get more into in a moment. But yeah, the first episode here is just the kids interacting with him, and they spend a lot of time, I guess, trying to be like, we got to get on his good side, and we get like that montage of them, helping out. I guess with like his routines and stuff, and
Yep.
and kind of wearing him down to where eventually he softens on them. Our friend Stuart Foley over at Trek Yards had I thought like a funny comment on this. He was talking about in one of their videos that they did at Trek Yards, talking about these episodes, Prodigy season 2, when Majel and Gwen are they like wave at Chakotay, or no, they send him like they give him like the Vulcan salute, and they're like live long and prosper, and he kind of like begrudgingly smiles and does it back, And
Yeah.
Stuart was saying like he should have like done it back and then slowly like turned his hand to like flip the bird to them. But yeah, like it is interesting to be like, oh, like we got to get on Chakotay's good side. Like that's going to be that's kind of like the mission objective. Like this character that like the audience is probably going to be like really familiar with, like these kids. I don't know. It's like it was weird to put Chakotay like in that position of being like, oh, we really look up and respect this guy. Like going in, like it's important to us that like Chakotay likes us. You know, I thought that was a good way to kind of offset some of the, I guess, and I doubt this was even like on purpose. I think this is only something that like hardcore Trek fans have strong opinions about. General audiences don't really care about Chakotay that much. But it kind of like offsets the I don't know if I'm gonna like Chakotay. It's kind of late, but like the kids like never question it, like they kind of
Right.
like maintain like that. It's like it doesn't matter. This dude was like a Starfleet captain, like by default, like that should make him like pretty cool, you know?
Yeah, and that's a way that you can also, in some ways, sort of improve on characters or sort of build them up a little bit, is by having the characters around them be accepting or loving or whatever with them. You can kind of guide the audience a little bit. Jill in our audience was saying earlier that always had disliked Chakotay, found him okay in these, but that's like a minor miracle for her to find him okay. And so good job, Prodigy people. That's writers, animators, etc. You're clearly it all sort of worked, I think. And yet it does, Father. At no point did I think, well, this doesn't feel like Chakotay from Voyager, right?
Yeah, it feels like an in continuity growth from the character we saw in Voyager.
Yeah, and uh, as Patrick in the audience says, I saw someone say Chakotay in this episode is Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi meets Castaway,
I
which
haven't
for
I
sure.
never saw Castaway, but I'll say that I think Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi it was also felt like a natural continuation of the
Yeah.
character that we saw in the previous movies. I would say that like I wish I had saw Castaway, but like I'm still kind of mad about it. My mom, who's no longer with us, but I still blame it on her, I guess. I wanted to go see Castaway with my mom and my aunt. We were gonna go see a movie. And my mom was like, no, I heard that's like 3 hours long. They don't even talk during most of it. There's no way in hell I want to sit through that movie. And to this day, I've still like never seen it. But I would have seen it that day if my mom had just been like, okay, I'll go see a Castaway with y'all.
Yeah, yeah. Bummer. It's a movie that I mostly like. It's got a little bit of Zemeckis sentimentality, but it's pretty good. I actually think, and I'd have to rewatch that the montage of Chakotay day in and day out, kind of doing some of the same stuff, and then seeing him aged up a little bit, might be drawn from that. Now I don't know. I know they didn't invent the montage that reveals that someone's gotten older surviving, um, but I think they might have homaged it. I'd have to take a look.
I really loved the look of this planet. Like having a
Oh yeah.
we keep talking about like Castaway, The Last Jedi, like having like the broken old man, shipwrecked, stranded, and we're gonna find him and inspire him to escape the island. Not terribly original, but like the setting, the execution of all of it, like I've never seen anything quite like this planet. Is it like a mountain? Is it like an actual island that's like floating on the vapor? Like I don't know, and I kind of like don't need to know. It has these Beetlejuice sandworms that make it like kind of dangerous, but like it was another example of animation in Star Trek being such an advantage for the franchise. It would be very difficult to show this environment in a live action episode of Trek, but here in animation you can get away with it.
Yeah, I loved it. It does give the vibe of mountains above the clouds, but these clouds are kind of more unique than our earthly clouds, and they have it seems a certain amount of buoyancy and things. It seems different properties.
Yeah, fish swim around in them
Yeah,
apparently.
it's water vapor. It occurs to me that on a sort of symbolic level, because we have such the association of heaven as being among the clouds and things like that. The idea that Chakotay is, at least as far as inside his interior life, is dead. He considers himself dead. That it sort of acts as a sort of visual heaven for him. Not not a happy heaven, but it does seem like, it feels like he's
But like his
at,
life is over. He's living
he's
in his afterlife.
he's in the beyond. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which another
His
neat.
his crew is dead. You know, Drake went off and died, and it's just him
Yeah,
and his hologram ghost. And yeah, I like that.
man, that scene where they found a Drake and they have this very, I think, very beautifully rendered, realistic type of human-sized bird skull,
Was it
was
realistic?
startling.
I thought like the spikes, I guess to symbolize where like the feathers would have been. I thought those, like if it had just had a beak, I still would have recognized it as him. I don't know if I needed like the spikes, but
Honestly, I didn't pay close attention. I was mostly just looking at that structure around the beak itself and the way the nose and the bones look. I didn't look much to the spikes, but it does look broadly. It's kind of like a realistic representation of a bird's bones, other than maybe those spikes, because he's an alien too.
did the line or the delivery of the line? Oh, that feathered fool! Did that kind of that might have kind of like just temporarily killed the seriousness of the moment just a little bit with like that line. Like it just sounded like a little like awkward. Like if I don't know
Mm.
if like if someone just like found like the corpse of someone like really like close to them, and they're like the last person that
Well,
they were close to, if they would be like that feathered fool. It just seemed like a
Well,
little
there's a certain
weird.
heightened quality to a lot of the dialogue here, but at the very least, I could you sometimes will sort of ruefully, you might be saying it with love, but you're like, you idiot, why'd you go and get killed? That is an instinct people do have. Um, those exact words may be a little bit cheesy, but it also, again, it fits the show's slightly heightened level.
I liked the
I,
bait and switch though. Of like it looks like they're gonna ride off to rescue Dal from Beetlejuice sandworms, and instead it's like, oh, Dal is fine. He's hanging out with the corpse of a Dreek who actually already
right.
solved the problem for all of us years ago before he died.
Yeah, in a somewhat more serious, contemplative like novel or something like that, I think Chakotay would have to think, did my cynicism and my bitterness drive him away and essentially push him to his death?
But it
It's
also
not,
pushed them to discover their salvation. So
yeah, but that doesn't help a Dreek. That got him killed,
no.
and he saved them. I think there would be some residual guilt in a sort of in a, I guess I'd say a somewhat more adult setting, if they were doing the analysis. But Drake's also a grown up. He made his call. He made his decision. And that's a very cool scene. Yeah, his work. He's going to go down as the guy who got them out. They absolutely would not have been able to do it, or at least not in any sort of timely way without him.
And then the kids get to honor him with that little funeral ceremony, which I didn't think about until right now, but I just realized that is a Star Trek Generations callback. Like when Picard buries Kirk under the rocks
Yeah,
on Viridian 3 at the
yeah,
end of
yeah.
Generations. It's like kind of like the makeshift funeral for
It
your
was it
Starfleet
was
comrade.
Yeah, it was a little like they did a little slightly the Viking funeral, right?
Yeah.
Sending out the ship. Um, they
Out
didn't
into the
burn it.
clouds. That's very appropriate for a bird.
Yeah, that's true. One final sail. Um,
Let's move into part two of
okay.
the last flight of the Protostar, written by Alex Hansen and Aaron J. Welke, directed by Sung Shin. Chakotay and the cadets devise a bold but perilous plan to relaunch the Protostar. Before the ship can fly, however, it will first have to sail. I really liked how they showed off the visuals of the planet so much in this episode. But as not much happens at all in this one. It's just literally them just trying to get the ship to go, and then they eventually get it off world. We get like that opening scene. They do show Janeway on Voyager briefly, and that had a cool cameo from Dr. Crusher.
Yeah.
But then other than that, it was just getting the ship going.
I
But I
was
love the
shocked
look of the
that
planet.
cameos like that had not leaked to me. That's was very cool. I felt like it did a little bit of work to like just acknowledge, okay, yes, because I don't think, like, did Wesley come up at all in Picard season 3?
One time when Dr. Crusher is trying to justify keeping her kid a secret from John Luke for decades,
Because
and
she
she
felt like
says,
she
I
lost
lost
him.
my husband to the stars. I lost my son to the stars. I lost
Hmm.
you to the stars. I wasn't going to lose him too.
Right, right. And I like this because it sort of does a little bit of that, filling in the character and
Yeah.
emotional
Well,
gaps of
when
showing.
we heard that, everyone was like, "God damn it, Wes! Have you not visited your mom? Like, why would you not go
Right,
check on her?"
right.
So it's here like, okay, he did visit her at least one time.
He's living that crazy traveler lifestyle on the space mushrooms. He doesn't think about these things.
But they establish here, like it sounds like he has not seen her in a long time, and we like he showed up in Nemesis to come to Riker and Troy's wedding, so he does do this on occasion. He does like pop back up.
Mm. I think that I would really like to see at some point a reunion. The animated shows would probably be a good way to do it. You know, maybe this, you know, since Wes plays a role in this and they have introduced her. I haven't seen the last 5 episodes. Please don't spoil it, but maybe that does yet happen. So that would be cool. Father, I wanted to just rewind and mention one thing in the previous episode, which I don't know if it got used in this one. The design on that vehicle, I think they called it the Runaway, their land
Yeah,
vehicle. It was very cool looking. I just thought that was a cool
you
looking.
didn't like it in season one.
Did I say it looked too Mass Effect?
Uh, I can't. I can't remember the reason, but if people go back and check out the Tex-Trek episode where we discuss season one, episode 3, it's in there.
Yeah, no, I just it's maybe it was the context of it or something I didn't like, but yeah, I thought here it was cool to see, and they do use it a little bit in the Dal uses it to kind of goofily try and pull the ship right when and then smarter heads prevail and
We get
dislodge the
the
ship.
Archimedes quote. If
Yeah.
I need a what is it?
Give me a
Give
big
me
enough lever and I'll move the world.
give
And
me a
like
big enough lever and a place to stand, and I'll move
right.
the world.
Yep. I remember that line from an X-Men comic I read circa 1980, maybe 81. That were the first time I heard that principle of levers. Um, but yeah, and then they, we get big starship as sailing ship in the clouds sequence.
Some of my favorite stuff with that was the Chakotay talking to Dal stuff, and I guess Dal kind of losing the fake it till you make it attitude that he had to learn in season one, and now he's
Hmm.
becoming a little bit more like self-critical, and he's like, oh, maybe I'm actually not cut out for leadership. He's starting to like question things, and before we just kind of assumed, I'm just going to be good at all this, and then when he actually starts trying to do things, it's like, oh, this is actually like a lot harder in practice than it is on paper.
Yeah, Chakotay's got to tell him that it is possible you won't be a captain, and so you need to uh, be a little bit more in the moment and find yourself trying to excel wherever you find yourself.
He pulls him, and Chakotay pulls him off of a was it jib duty? I don't
Yeah,
know much about like sailing ships, whatever the jib
me
is.
neither. He's a
And
jibsman,
But he puts
but
Gwen on it, and he's like, like later we see like Chakotay in a different episode we're gonna get to in a moment. And he's like, oh, Gwen, you're gonna be my first officer on this. So, but like now that they kind of like got Chakotay like through that arc where like okay, he's been like re-inspired, and they got like his Starfleet mojo back in him. I think it works that he is almost kind of a. I don't want to say bland, but I don't know, like a bit like milder of a character.
yeah,
You talk about this a lot, Dave, how sometimes you kind of have like that central figure, or like one example we can use is like with the X-Men we talk about a lot, but like Scott Summers' Cyclops might be like a bit boring compared to some of the other characters, or like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We talk about like a Buffy Summers, compared to like all the other characters, she's not going to be like as many people's favorites because like she's kind of like the plain simple normal balanced central one.
right.
And that's kind of what Chakotay can be here to like lead these kids. He's not going to be the like the big personality that Jankum Pog is, or the
Right.
like the insecure questioning themselves person like Dal has become, or the ambitious growing person like Rock Talk. He can just kind of be like the voice of from the center.
Yeah, maturity and experience. but yeah, he can kind of help them shine a little bit, or help them contrast with him, I suppose. And it is a double edged sword. Sometimes. Well, sometimes those characters can be a little bit bland, but I think they found a pretty good balance here of, both, honoring who he was on Voyager while, giving him, he did develop, he did go through some stuff in this, and he's got to like kind of re-find himself, and you see him finding himself while around the kids too, and Dal saves his life. He goes overboard into the semi-buoyant clouds,
Yeah.
and
And I guess I do question the science here a little bit. I'm like, is this cloud? Is it made out of like Dow can like breathe it? Like, is there like a lot of oxygen in this? But like fish can swim. It's dense enough that fish can swim in it. I'm not
well,
really
those
sure the science on this planet, but it's so beautiful. I don't care too much. It's Star Trek should have a lot of strange new worlds, and this is a strange new world.
yeah, yeah. I have to say that a lot of times we'll just think of like a certain kind of weather or an environment, like it's a desert planet, it's an Arctic planet, or whatever. This is like a mountainous and cloud planet, and it's not really like any of the others. I think it was one of the more innovative planets they've had on modern Trek. Would visit too. It looks cool. Hopefully with something to avoid the worms. When they get loose, is there a I feel like there's some pretty cool shots of them. When they fire up the proto drive. Is that what do you call it?
Uh, well, they don't have the proto drive online until they rebuild the proto core online
You're
until
right.
they.
You're right. That's not until next episode.
But when they get the deuterium, they're able to re-engage the warp core because they had the. So basically,
Right.
like with warp core technology, the technology there. If
Yeah.
people are unfamiliar, but matter antimatter combination, like you combine matter and antimatter, get like a big explosion. That's what powers warp drive, right? So you use dilithium crystals to regulate that, whatever that means. But that's why they always have to have dilithium crystals. The matter that you use is deuterium because that's hydrogen. It's easy to find, easy to acquire. I think it's like 2 hydrogen molecules is deuterium. Like that's a real thing, deuterium. And but you take like the deuterium and then you combine it with your antimatter and then you get power. So Adric acquired the antimatter, and then the kids and Chakotay acquire the deuterium. And the funny thing to me is I'm pretty sure this would have had to have been written before season 2 of Strange New Worlds.
Mhm.
So in Strange New Worlds, we see the Enterprise cruising around collecting deuterium with the Bizarre collectors. Kind of like the first time we ever saw that in action.
Mhm.
But I kind of feel like Star Trek Prodigy like almost deserves credit for being the first because I'm sure this would have been written before that Strange New Worlds episode was
Oh,
written.
right.
It just takes longer to make a animation, and this was kind of delayed release anyways. But I don't know if I have anything else on Last Flight of the Protostar. So if you're ready to get to some tribble action, I think I am. Unless you have any
Yeah.
final thoughts.
Now let's jump to it.
All right. So next up, we have season 2, episode 13, a tribble called Quest.
I have to salute their homage to the iconic '80s hip hop group,
Yeah,
A Tribe Called Quest.
I'm
That's
sure
I
the target demographic of the like the 8 to 14 year olds or whatever demographic they're aiming for are totally gonna get that reference.
Hey, it's not like we all knew Shakespeare when we would see it referenced in Star
That's
Trek.
true.
You can do a little bit of research.
I was the dumbass kid who was like the con science of the king. It sounds like some weird sci-fi. So I can't wait to find out what con science is when I watch this.
Hey, that's how we learn. And there's probably some Gen X parents that just dying to tell their kids about A Tribe Called Quest and bust out some old '80s cassette tapes for them. But
Maybe
yeah,
even
that's
an
cool. It's not something you get referenced too often in Star Trek. There's not a lot of titles that have a hip hop tie-in.
Does anyone still? I don't know anyone who still has any cassette tapes. They all deteriorated. Do you still
Yeah,
have
yeah.
any?
I don't. Well, I think I have stray stuff that I haven't thrown out.
Mm.
But Yeah, a handful of ones that were notable. I think I tried to convert to burn to a CD, which is probably also dead too. And I could probably find most of it online now anyway. But yeah, no, I think that one kind of it was particularly finite lifespan.
Well, a tribble called Quest was written by Keith Sweet II, directed by Sean Bishop. While harvesting bosonite on a barren world, the crew encounter aggressive, genetically modified tribbles and the Klingon scientist who created them. Who created these tribbles? Didn't create all tribbles. Although we have
Uh,
one of your favorite characters of all time in Star Trek, Dave, Lieutenant Larkin, created the fast replicating tribble, the fast reproduction tribble
yes, I
in
see.
in short treks.
Your use of dry sarcasm is unequaled, Father.
But they do reference that. They do reference it in Prodigy.
Ah, good. Pin that down. I hadn't realized that, Father. I hadn't realized it. Damn that short trek. I'd throw them all away just to destroy that one episode. I feel like this episode though was the episode where they were like, "Can we make tribbles scary or suspenseful at
This is
least?"
kind of what I wanted them to do in that short trek. I thought that short trek was going to be kind of a horror episode when we first saw previews for. Keep in mind, like, early Discovery, it was very grim dark, so it kind of seemed like something they might actually try to do in Star Trek of 2018 or 19 would be something
Yeah,
like a
that's a good
triple
point.
horror story, but no, we get that here.
Yeah, and it's both comical, like when they have to run from the giant tribble. That's as Joel correctly points out, is like the Raiders of the Lost Ark boulder.
Yeah.
And but at at a certain point when they're like in the tribble nest and stuff like that, it's actually fairly suspenseful. Like I think they do a pretty good job of making the tribbles menacing in those numbers.
Yeah, how did you like the look of the tribbles, like of animated tribbles? I thought their hair. I know hair can be hard to do, and fur can be hard to do in animation. They look kind of like spiky. They look like rocks or like spiky kind of.
Right, or like somebody put some kind of hair styling gel or something in
Mm.
there and made little wisps on them. Um, uh, you know, I think since they didn't, I don't know, they might should have made it look a little bit more soft and furry, but I think they did want to have that suggestion of aggression. So as it almost looks more like a pine cone or something like that. Like they look spike. They do look spiky, even though I don't think they're. It's not literally meant to be spikes. It's just a stylization, just the same way they have a lot of stylized looks on the show. But I was a little bit lukewarm on it. But I do think it conveyed the aggression that I think that they wanted it to. They looked a little bit more just visually dangerous because it kind of read almost like spikes.
What do you think of our
Sorry,
Klingon? Or go ahead.
Joel says the tribbles have anime hair. that's
Yeah,
that's
there's
pretty good.
kind of some Goku hair action going
Yeah,
on. I can
yeah.
get
There you
behind that.
go.
Uh, what do you think of our Klingon scientist, Doctor Karuvang, I believe?
Father, when I saw him, I was like, oh, given my bad memory, I was like, is this an updated look of like a character from that episode of the animated series with like the glamour and all this? And I went and I looked it up and I was like, nope. So it was just original
No, that
character.
was Cyrano Jones again. Yeah,
Right, right. I thought there might have been a Klingon in the episode too.
Koloth is in it, voiced by James Doohan.
Oh,
But
there we go. There we go. Um,
I wish that they had made some of these tribbles pink as kind of a nod to the animated series tribbles, because they were
yeah.
genetically altered too. And that's why they were big then. We see them also
Yeah.
grow large here, I guess, as like another tribute to the animated series, but
There's got
or
to be
tip
at
of the
least
hat.
four or five different colors. Are none of those colors slightly pinkish?
No,
Oh,
they're just like earth tones. They're just like brown and beige tribbles, but
what a snub. No, I mean visually probably a pretty good homage to the original episode. So Fatheree, I liked. I already don't remember his name, but I liked the Klingon guy.
Karuvang.
Yeah, we've kind of seen some Klingons like him before. To some degree. Oh my gosh, Chancellor of the Klingon Empire.
Martok, who sent
Martok
this dude.
had a little bit of him back in the day when he was kind of more shattered And we've seen some old fat Klingons before, and some Klingons who've lost it, and so he's one of those guys. He fits into a kind of a certain stock type of Klingon that we've seen, a Klingon who's kind of let himself go, feels like he has failed in his duty.
But only
Uh,
the second Klingon scientist, which
yeah,
is
it's
interesting.
funny. They drew attention to that, and I was like, okay, but there have to be Klingon scientists. You don't get technology without
Right.
science, and so
But they
I
said that in TNG. They're just like, yeah, you don't run into many Klingon scientists, so
right. It's I guess not what they. But I guess here's my question: Are scientists treated like, oh, you're lesser because you don't have like a warrior type capacity, or you're out there studying molecules and things like that, and it doesn't have any immediate wartime applications?
it was
They probably
suggested
are looked down on, right?
it was suggested in TNG in the episode Suspicions that the Klingon scientists were yeah, not very like well respected. Uh but here, like, this guy, I mean, like, he's literally like working for he's the house geneticist to Chancellor Martok. So maybe under the Martok regime, scientists have a lot more respect. Uh and
That'd be nice.
I did the math, and this would be 9 years into Martok's reign, which I believe is how long Gowron ruled the empire. So Martok lasts at least as long as Gowron did. Assuming, I guess,
Nice.
we don't know if that was entirely uninterrupted. I guess someone else might have taken over at some point in between Deep Space Nine and Prodigy, but I'm gonna assume that it's just been all Martok all the time. So I'm glad to
Father,
hear he's still doing well.
my coworker Nick has just gotten back into rewatching or finishing watching season 1 of Prodigy, and he's now roughly where I am on season 2. And he's watched a little bit of DS9. And I don't think the name Martok really means anything to him yet, but I was like, I hope he doesn't remember
He
that. So
hasn't gotten to the Martok's
okay,
first appearance yet.
that's good.
So
That's good. That's a character with a very satisfying journey on DS9, and so if you don't know too much about it, I think it's better. Okay, so that's good. That's good. But what about you, Father? Did you have any notable thoughts on our Klingon geneticist?
um I guess that I liked that he doesn't seem to have like those same kind of like insecurities. He's still like very Klingon, like he's still very focused on like honor, and this is his mission against like his enemies and all of that stuff. Because you're not going to feel like a Klingon if you don't have that side of it. But he was still, he's a scientist and he's able to like talk science with rock talk. And uh
Oh yeah,
I
and Rock Talk got to like kind of like impress him by, or arguably humble him by like almost immediately solving his problem, and she's just like, I studied a lot.
Yeah, and she kind of has to learn the lesson of like of not giving up, like even when things don't look good, and when it looks like you made like big mistakes, but it's still part of like that theme of like maintaining hope.
Right,
And she was so devastated. It was like, it shows like a lot of growth and maturity in Rock Talk. Like she's gotten over her love of cute animals. Like when
right.
she creates the slab accident Bribble, because Murph isn't a little cute thing anymore, so they had to have a new little cute mascot for the show. So they create Bribble. But season 1 Rock Talk would have been like all over this thing, trying to kiss and cuddle it. And then season 2 Rock Talk is more disappointed that she didn't get like the scientific results from the experiment she wanted.
All right, she's about to stomp on it probably.
It almost shows like, be careful what you wish for, Lieutenant. Like, oh, you want to be a big, smart Starfleet scientist? Well, look, that just look how that impacts your love of cute animals. Don't let that don't let like this new thing you want to acquire get rid of this old thing that you want to hold on to.
I suppose it also suggests that sometimes when your passion or your hobby becomes your job, it can become, you can start to take it so seriously you lose the joy of it too. That wasn't the theme of this episode, but maybe a little some of that is percolating in there. Incidentally, I thought, do we just call him? Is he Bribble?
Yeah, it's just baby Tribble, I guess, because it kind of looks
Oh
like a
no,
baby and it kind of looks
oh,
like
is
a
that what it
Tribble.
was? I thought it was because he was a bricker.
Oh, because it's a
Brickard.
Bricard. Okay, that makes so much more sense. Dow says baby Tribble, I think, but yeah, Bricard Tribble. Okay, that makes ton more sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, but I'm not 100% sure. But it was her DNA and stuff.
Yeah.
She accidentally did like some weird gremlin type experiment there.
Yeah, she's
Um,
had some of her cells got into the petri dish, I guess, and mixed with some tribble DNA, and now we got this thing. What do you think about it?
Too cute. Too much like a troll doll for my personal taste, and I'm perfectly content with Murph's level of cuteness.
Yeah.
Still bringing the cute to the party. I think.
The good. I know you don't want spoilers for the next 5 episodes, but I don't think you'll mind knowing that like
Hit me.
there's not too much Bribble.
Okay. Yeah, Bribble is not going to ruin a scene for me, but I was again just fine with Murph. Um, but yeah, broadly, the lesson they learned from it is certainly a good one. And you know what else I like? There's in this one, uh, well, there was some more gravity with Zero gets an injury, and it's
Hmm.
clear it's not going to heal.
Got rolled over by a tribble. You
Yeah,
see Murph do cool security stuff. Murph almost got everyone to safety, everyone but
yeah,
one.
yeah. And Murph was also yeah. Murph does multiple like Mr. Fantastic or
Yeah.
Plastic Man like escapes for people with forming a ladder, whipping that arm out to save somebody, all kinds of stuff.
When the
So
Kazon computer took him over in one of the episodes we discussed last week, and he grew those multiple arms to attack with, it was kind of scary. He had like scary Murph, but yeah, his Mr.
yeah,
Fantastic powers can be,
well,
his stretchy powers, the
later
Fantastic
on
Four character.
he drops a beat down in the mirror universe, but we'll get to that. But yeah, so I liked that, and what was it? There was also a good convo. It was, I guess, Gwen and Majel
Yeah,
talking about Gwen
being the
talking
new
about
girl in the group.
yeah, and I guess Gwen was what it was the weight of everything on Solum for her, and
Yeah,
Majel doesn't know where she belongs in all of this.
it just both starting off, they were both kind of like the outsider to the group. Like Gwen was
Yeah,
like Gwen came into the show as like the main bad guy's daughter,
right.
and Majel came into it as one of the rival kids uh, with the Nova Squadron
Hmm.
cadets. So yeah, they both kind of started off as like antagonists to the heroes of the show, and I guess that's what they're kind of comparing notes on. But I like them kind of having like a friendship. Like we don't have like
Me
a
too.
like I don't know. I don't want to use the term like gal pals, but whatever. Just like two women characters or two girl characters that are friends on the show. That's kind of missing. I think there's too big of an age difference between Gwen and Rock Talk to establish that. So that's something you can do here now that you've added
Yeah,
Majel to the crew.
it was a good, mature conversation.
What you were talking about, like the Zero stuff, though, and the Zero stuff makes more sense to me now rewatching these episodes than they kind of did like my first time through. But the way that Zero's organic body works is that they seem to not have the ability to recover from injuries, so they will only break down and never build back up, which is that sounds like yeah, that would be a tragic way to exist. Once you leave that planet, you get to keep the body, but just anytime you hurt it or damage it, it just never gets better. You're just stuck with that.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure it's in some way reflective of some real life things like that, like brittle bone disease or certain immune issues that people might have. I mean, in general, the body is always trying to heal. So that's not. But in this case, doesn't even seem to be really trying. And I forget what does Zero say about the predicament? Are they kind of resigned to it? I guess.
Well, they yeah, they seem to just be really into like the tactile sensations or like whatever that comes with that. It's like, oh, I guess this is
Sure.
just kind of like the price to pay. But the
Accepting that what they did, they still did for their friends, and so they kind of have to live with the consequences, I guess.
well, it's not so much something I think Zero is doing for friends, but like it's something like they're doing it for themselves to like get to like live
Uh,
like that.
oh, I guess, but didn't leaving the planet was something they did for the Protostar group, right? The other kids in there,
Yeah, I guess there's
like
this. I mean,
Zero
their
couldn't have
other
stayed
option would be to
behind.
just like stay behind. Yeah, so
Yeah, I think they knew full well that there would be consequences to doing that.
But I liked the Jankum Pog stuff there, and
Yeah,
their kind of bond, and Jankum building the cane for Zero and just being like, well, whenever that's the engineer approach. If I can't fix it, then I'll just make something different.
he's a solution oriented
Yeah.
guy, and he's in his own ways, for a cranky dude, he's kind of got some optimism, or at least he's willing to lend some optimism to his friends, which is super awesome. That's a very cool character trait in Jankum.
And they do some more cool Jankum and Zero stuff later in the season. The final sequence of, well, not, I guess the climax, I should say, when the tribbles do surround the kids and it looks like it's game over and Rock Talk threw away the Klingons disruptor, but it's more of like that season one, I guess, the importance of communication, when it's like, oh, Bribble saves the day by making tribble noises to the other tribbles.
Yeah,
Deus Ex tribble, I guess. But
sure. It's still very satisfying in a way that's kind of very instant and immediate, even if it's a little cheesy, where the tribbles all start to slowly roll backwards. And it's almost like a little, like when a little yappy dog, starts barking and all the big dogs kind of back away.
I guess there is like a lot of convenience in this episode, like in this season, Zero's containment suit being damaged, and then the next episode, like, oh look, here's a planet where non-corporeals
Sure.
can get bodies, or like this episode, like, oh, we got the protostar back, but we can't restore the protocore unless we get some bosonite, and here's a planet with bosonite, and all we gotta do is like help this Klingon with the tribbles. uh,
Right. But
but
I think, well, go ahead, Father. Finish
there's
your
an
thoughts.
explanation for all of this. A Wesley Crusher was like, this is the only way it's all going to work out if I like line all this stuff up like this and then send y'all here. So I think it's kind of there was predestination for all of this stuff. Wesley
And
was thinking all this ahead of time.
the Prodigy writer, Aaron Waltke, is once again in our comments and says, just imagine they spent months scanning. I was going to say, sometimes, we know this, that there are contrivances to move the story along. And this show in particular has that vibe of like, let's take a new audience, let's take an all ages audience on a tour of Star Trek and, show them all the cool places. And yeah, the meat and potatoes work of scanning to find those places is not where the fun is. The fun is when you get there and something interesting happens. So yeah, I have to assume that there probably was a little bit of downtime work for those.
Well,
Um,
thanks for joining us in the live audience chat.
Always a pleasure. Always
Star
a
Trek
pleasure.
Prodigy writer producer Aaron J. Waltke. I also want to comment on the invention of bosonite. I think that's new. That is a new Trek. I thought the first time I watched this, I was like, oh, is that like the stuff the 10C were mining in Discovery?
Mm,
That like, but no, like that was boronite. This is
okay.
bosonite.
Because of my sort of sucky memory, I was just like, oh, that's probably been around forever. It's probably in like mentioned 20 different times in various shows. But yeah, I didn't immediately recognize it.
And it's the stuff you need to make stars for the protocore. But I kind of like how beyond that, it does like building a protostar class ship should be kind of like difficult and rare for like the Trek
Right.
universe. It's based on like we've seen like in stuff we know that is set after Prodigy season 2. But I'll have some more thoughts on that, I think, next week when we see the next when we discuss the next 5 episodes of the season and finish it off.
Like Discovery's Spore Drive, we probably don't want to necessarily see it equipped on every single ship. We want to have our crew kind of have their cool unique ship, and yeah, so there's a little bit of justification for its uniqueness. Helps to have it in there.
You have any other tribble thoughts before we move on to Cracked Mirror?
I'll quick read one more from post from Aaron Waltke, who mentions of the what is it, bosonite, that it's a reference to bosons, aka the God particle. Which maybe that's why it sounded a little familiar, because my brother is an astronomy and physics and general science buff, and that one, of course, even entered into the pop culture. I know the whole God particle thing is like very much a misnomer of what it actually is, but But yeah, I've heard of it, and I don't know anything about physics, but I've heard of it.
Very
Um,
cool.
so yeah, but no, let's go ahead and jump to the next one.
Cool. Well, let's get to Universe Hoppin', Season 2, Episode 14, Cracked
Mm.
Mirror, written by Aaron McNamara, directed by Roland Lee. The Protostar's reunion with Voyager has unexpected side effects, bouncing the crew between alternate realities, including the Mirror Universe. I thought that was a really smart idea to do a Mirror Universe episode, but not just Mirror Universe exclusive. You get like some other universes visited in there as well. I thought that was a way to kind of do something fresh with the Mirror Universe.
Yeah, I liked it, and man, like some big things happen in it in the sense that well, we see. I think the first official Voyager mirror, right?
Yeah, the first canonical one. I know
Yeah,
J.K. Woodward, who we've mentioned
for
recently,
sure.
who we've actually have had on the show many years ago, but he one of his IDW Star Trek comic book contributions was he illustrated a very beautiful Mirror Universe Star Trek Voyager one shot that was basically this evil Captain Janeway like took Voyager to the Delta Quadrant just to raid it, just to be a Delta Quadrant pirate queen.
It's so messed up.
It's so Mirror Universe though.
No, it is. It was cool. Father, you have a still up showing this very beautiful, colorful background of it. I think when it
A
goes
proto warp.
into proto warp, and so yes, as I was, that's what I was going to mention in the previous episodes. Is that when it does go to it, they do a little some beauty shots of it at that speed, and they do look really cool. Just compliments to the animators. You came through on some very cool visuals.
I liked Hollow Janeway tribble sitting Bribble with the laser pointer finger, and then being like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
gonna entertain me more than it'll entertain you."
Bribble seemed fairly entertained. It was very nice of her. Janeway takes care of everyone.
And then they immediately know they're in the wrong universe because the Admiral is Jellicoe instead of Janeway.
Right. The I was a little confused at this point because I was like, oh, well, this episode's called the Mirror Thing, and I know they're in an alternate universe, so this must be like some sort of mirror Jellicoe, and the shoe hasn't dropped yet. They haven't realized how bad the situation is. It's going to kind of look. It must look at least a little bit more like the Prime universe, but no, it is in fact. This was the one where Janeway herself had gone into the wormhole.
Yeah, this is basically the one where Majel didn't Vulcan nerve pinch Jankum in the second or third episode and made him like fall on the controls and launch the Infinity early.
Mm-hmm.
And Janeway actually went on the Infinity mission with Noam and Tysus. And instead of rescuing Chakotay, they all die. So I guess it worked out for the best that didn't happen. Yeah, so they find some universes that are just slightly different like that, and then there's another one where they never stopped the living construct. So the
Federation
Voyager,
got wrecked.
yeah, I guess the Voyager A still got built, but didn't last very long, and Okana is just like selling parts of it to Endurians or whatever. But
Fatheree, so I don't know if Okana shows up again, but we did get our Okana. But he definitely did not have, like, I guess I'd say a big redemption story. He did help them. I
he told
guess.
them that he only split at Noble Isle because he was going to get help, but I don't know if anyone believes that.
Right. But I loved all the guest stars in this one. And am I correct? Because I've only seen these once, Father. I have not none of these. This batch did I visit twice. Uh, did they have what is like the Enterprisians? Did I see
Yeah,
those?
yeah, they have the Enterprisians on in some universe. Tuvix comes back to the Alpha Quadrant and is
Yes.
captain of the Voyager A, crewed
Oh
with
man.
Enterprisians.
Yes. Amazing.
That was a
Amazing.
great choice, though. That was a great
Ah,
choice of a Star Trek what if. It's like a what if parallel universe.
deep cuts on multiple levels. My mind was kind of detonating when those names and references started coming out. That was very fun. This is, by the way, I think easily the most fun I had in this batch of 5, and I really had a good time with it. Is lots of insider stuff for the Trek fans, but nothing I think you needed to know to enjoy the episode.
Well, speaking of J.K. Woodward, I think the Terran Empire Starfleet uniform designs. They still have Starfleet in the Mirror Universe, by the way. So it's a little weird when Mirror Universe Chakotay is like, ugh, Starfleet, when he sees Prime Chakotay's Starfleet badge, because it's like they still say Starfleet in the Mirror Universe, but maybe they don't in the time of the Terran Armada. But it's cool world building. I would love to see more of this explored in other Star Trek shows going forward. But after Deep Space Nine, after the Terran resistance, I guess, have defeated their alliance oppressors, it seems like the same thing happens in continuity that happened in the Star Trek Online video game. But the Terrans are trying to rebuild the Terran Empire. They have the Terran Armada, is what they call it here, is what
Right.
Mirror Universe Janeway calls it. But their uniforms look pretty similar to what J.K. Woodward has created for the Star Trek comics set in the Mirror Universe.
Um, and am I correct? Janeway has like the 7 of 9 Borg eyepiece.
Yes, and I did not notice that until like the third time I watched this episode. But
Really?
yeah, I got so Mirror Universe Janeway has like scrapped with the Borg. I guess it was like partially assimilated and got like unassimilated, but there's no way the Borg of the Mirror Universe are still alive, because Picard could have killed the Borg in TNG had he wanted, when they had the virus, they could have given Hugh an
Yeah.
Borg. So the Terrans definitely did that at some point in the Mirror Universe.
By the way, Aaron Waltke says in his heart he thinks O'Connor was telling the truth in this
That's good
case.
enough for me. That's
Yeah.
that's my headcanon now. Thanks.
Janeway, who I'm sure Kate Mulgrew had some fun chewing up this role too. But
Oh yeah.
I was looking at her hair, and some silver streaks aside, it reminded me of in True Lies, when Jamie Lee Curtis has to kind of go do her sexy dance, and her hair's a little dowdy, so she just splashes some water in it and slicks it back. And I was like, oh, that looks like it's Janeway's look here. Um, it was good stuff, and man, like a fairly scary Chakotay too.
We talked about how they keep it a little ambiguous in the Prime universe if Chakotay and Janeway are an item or not. But Mirror Universe, I don't think there's any question about it. Like these two are effing.
Well, that does seem to be the general way of the Mirror Universe. Um, so certainly on Deep Space Nine, there was little doubt of what was going on. Or even I guess in TOS, there was lots of
And definitely like not on
bad.
Discovery. Like Giorgio just basically like says like
Yeah,
into
you're
the
right.
camera like, oh yeah, my universe is like everyone is pansexual and we're always like in a big orgy basically.
Yeah, I don't. This has been. We've talked about this before. I don't know that I'm really into the idea that the more you might have a broad sexual horizon, the more likely you are to be evil. Definitely,
Yeah.
there's a little puritanism in there, but I think we
No, I
do
agree. I don't like that.
also. We like the idea of hedonistic bad guys, and it's fun too.
It is fun here to see like the Janeway and Chakotay. Just so I mean, it's also kind of disturbing and creepy. Uh, I don't know. How did you feel about the fake beard shenanigans and the oil on the beard? That made me like a little nervous when I saw it, but then like the execution of what happened, it actually wasn't bad. But I was scared it was gonna be like cartoony
Like
and
too
silly.
goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I thought it was pretty good. I think I had that same sort of subconscious fear too. But basically, Chakotay does a solid enough job. Kind of uh, bluffing the guards and stuff. Your average security personnel with some mirror
Yeah.
universe bravado and agonizer threats and things like that. But yeah, Janeway's too sharp for that.
Yeah. As soon as someone was like standing close to his face, like the whole like ruse fell apart, so it made
Right.
sense. And also like every ship we've ever seen in the Mirror Universe is lit dark. So
right?
I don't think that's like very good lighting. So it'd probably be easier to like paint a beard on your face and make it look real. The Murph
Well,
thing cracked me up though. Like Murph walking around with the evil mirror universe Spock beard.
I mean, it was ridiculous, but it was fun. And by the way, they need the dim lighting. We know their eyes are more sensitive,
Yeah.
which is a silly Discovery edition. But you know what? It's in the canon now, so I'm going to talk about it like it's in canon.
And even the Wells are evil in the mirror universe.
The best running joke.
I love
Loved
that line. I love that
man.
line.
They got ratted out by Jillian.
But that's so like I would imagine seeing that if you were like one of these kids and you run into cetacean ops and then you're like, oh my god, I wasn't expecting this, but there is a giant evil humpback whale here right now.
Yeah.
Like that would be terrifying. And we need to say thank you to Matthew Averett, who just gave us a very generous $10 super chat. Matthew says, have a good and happy weekend, everyone. Thank you so much, Matthew.
Cool. Well wish. Thank you. Thank you.
And right back at you. Have a good and happy weekend yourself.
Right on.
But for the people who it is important to them that Janeway and Chakotay are in love, they get the line from Chakotay. I could never hurt you in any universe. And even like evil mirror universe Janeway, it looked like that line kind of like moved her a little bit.
It did. There is material there for those who want it.
And if you just want to think that like, oh, I think they're just like brother and sister. I personally I look at Janeway and Chakotay and I think of them more as they're like Burnham and Saru, not Burnham and Book.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid take.
But it works either way, so that's why I think it was a well handled approach with the writing and the choices made there.
Yeah, I'll work on the more explicit stuff in my fanfic.
There you go. Always a place for that somewhere.
Yep.
And I guess having the different universe stuff and the different universe hopping, it was an excuse for the Loom to show back up and remind us of the imminent threat, and have like the characters say things like oh my god, they're even more terrifying than you made them sound, and stuff like that to hype up this constant threat.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Did Mirror Janeway get to still blow up some?
I don't know. Like, I think all the Loom probably leave as soon as Gwen leaves this universe, but that's too bad because Prime Janeway had so much fun fighting the. Well, I don't know if it was fun for her, but was able to.
Fun for us.
She was able to display so much fun badassery for the audience. But yeah, it'd be disappointing if Mirror Universe Janeway didn't get the same opportunity. So.
There's a bit in there where I guess they're trying to figure out sort of how to get out of this situation, and I feel like Dal said something that I felt like sort of summed up Trek technobabble at its best, at least. He said, "I don't know what you're saying, but I like the way you're saying it." That's how I'm gonna sort of mentally lens a lot of the Trek technobabble sometimes.
Yeah, there is some scripting in the episode I liked. Jankum being like a agonizer. Was Mean Machine taken? But, and then
the mirror universe is not beyond a joke or two. It's always love it, but yes, you can have some fun.
I liked when Janeway was like, "What is that? A spy device? Remove it, alien." Like when I like that, just like that one little line, like "remove it, alien." It just reminded us, like, "Oh yeah, these people are like insanely like xenophobic and like like they like to like eat aliens and stuff from Discoveries."
And she would have been perfectly okay if Gwen had just died right there, just disintegrated from it. Wouldn't have been anything to her. So yeah, you gotta work long and hard like they did with George Out to get get through to him.
And so it was the end of this episode, season 2, episode 14, when Chakotay and Janeway are finally together. Like the kids have had scenes with Janeway, the kids have had scenes with Chakotay, but the show has not really shown the two of them together, except for like that flashback hologram in season 1 until right here, right now.
And in the image you've got pulled up, we've got no less than 3 members of Voyager's crew on it because the Doctor is in the picture as well. So yeah, it was a big, nice Voyager reunion this season.
Yeah.
Really, really love
Yeah,
it.
Chakotay reunited with the Doctor first, before Janeway, and that was
It's
cool. Like to
true.
see like those two old friends reunite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, do you have any other thoughts on Cracked Mirror before we talk about the last episode we're going to discuss tonight, Ascension Part One?
I was looking through my notes, and the only thing I wanted to mention is I really like those side by side shots that they close out that episode with of the Protostar alongside Voyager, where Voyager is clearly the bigger ship, but Protostar is very cool looking, and
Yeah.
as companions, they look very cool together.
I love the designs of both ships, and they're honestly I'm not just saying this because someone who works on the show is in the live audience. Like I feel like y'all have heard me say this a lot, but like those are both, they've already immediately become two of my favorite Starfleet ship designs ever. Like I love Voyager A. I consider it an improvement over the Intrepid class. I would go Lamar class over Intrepid class any day of the week. And I love I always feel like if I could live on any Starfleet ship, I'd want like a Protostar class because it's small enough I could like park it on planets and have like these cool, beautiful landing sequences like they do on Star Trek Prodigy. And then also has like a cool holodeck. So if you want to play like you're on any other ship, just go in the holodeck. So I love both of them.
Hmm.
We need they don't have the Eagle Moss models anymore, but the new company doing them. I very much want a Voyager A and a Protostar model. It'd be so cool if they could be in scale to each other too. I
Oh
want all this
man,
stuff to be in scale.
that'd be cool, but that would mean some like weirdly big prices and weirdly small prices. So I doubt that's going to happen, but it would be very cool.
I might have to go back to like building my starships. When I was a kid, I wanted to like have everything in like a 1 to 1400 scale, but I think it turns out like there's more models available now in like 1 to 1000. So if I started building again, I guess I would start with that. But
Fatheree, if they did things to scale, then they'd have a very difficult time depicting the ship in our next episode, which looks like it's Narada sized.
let's get into that then. Season 2, episode 15, Ascension Part 1, written by Aaron, by the entire room, basically, other than the Hagon brothers. But this sets up the big cliffhanger to the, I don't know if 3/4 season finale.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
something like that. It's pretty intense. As Cynthia comes in and just
But it's her rise to power on Solom, and also the explanation to the audience how she was able to get so strong so quickly, which I thought was like some cool timey wimey stuff. The idea of she has these factories that are just like pumping out military equipment, and they could build decades worth of production within hours. I was like, oh, I've never seen something quite like that in sci-fi before, so I thought that was kind of neat.
it's a very scary idea that somebody who wants to build up a war machine could essentially do it at an accelerated rate like that.
But before they get into like the scary, dangerous stuff, you can kind of know if you're looking for it that like things are gonna get bad because everything is like way too like happy and quiet and peaceful at the beginning of the episode. But it is nice to see like the characters they get time to like catch their breath. If it was a video game, they'd be able to like okay, you get to like resupply all of your equipment and heal everything before you go into like the big boss battles at the
Yep.
end of the game.
Michelle got to go and reunite with Delta Squadron. We got to see some nice connective scenes between Chakotay and Janeway. And even Jellicoe, as I recall, was kind of briefly pretty cool about Chakotay being back and didn't immediately say something negative.
I liked in the Jellicoe scene how like he does a good job of seeing like kind of overwhelmed and stressed and strained, and unfortunately we're moving into a dark period of the Star Trek timeline, as established in Star Trek Picard. But if you watch season 1 of Picard, like oh yeah, like, around this time, like the Tal Shiar is infiltrating Starfleet, and that eventually there's gonna be the really bad Mars incident on First Contact Day.
Yep.
And they're kind of like laying the groundwork for that now when they have Jellicoe talking about how the fleet is really stretched thin trying to help out with this Romulan evacuation, and we're using those A500 androids on member worlds just because I guess because they don't have enough personnel to help out every planet within the Federation.
Mm-hmm.
So they have these androids everywhere, and after they go crazy on Mars, we know that's going to happen because of Picard. So yeah, that's probably going to be a big panic across the Federation. People are probably gonna be like, get these androids off of my planet, So yeah, it's we can see the groundwork here being set up for things to get real bad real fast.
I really liked those little moments of sort of continuity, connectiveness, and I thought they were artfully woven in.
Yeah, Jellicoe's not too big of a jerk. I'll agree with you on like he at the end, even though he's like, yeah, I'm not gonna give y'all approval to try to send the ship back in time. We're gonna get someone else to handle that. But at the end of the conversation, he's like, sorry, another crisis calls. See you in San Francisco. He's like too busy to keep talking to them because there's some other vice admiral is gonna call him with some other equally dire situation.
Mm-hmm.
It almost kind of seems like Vance in Prodigy season 3 when they're
Just
still
stressed.
Before Discovery kind of gets them out of that post-burn slump. It's just like just totally overwhelmed and inadequate to deal with all of the problems. So they got to pick and choose what they're going to address.
Yeah, I mean, and then he kind of does. He's kind of a dick still, but he had not. They brought a little more nuance, which I appreciated.
I liked when Dal interrupts the Nova Squadron training in the holodeck, because when he walks into the middle of like their space flight simulation, it was and he's standing outside of the ships talking to them. It was like when Jake did that to Nog in the runabout in the Holosuite, when Nog was preparing for his Starfleet Academy entry exams. So nice
I was able to put myself for a moment in the heads of the Delta Squadron and be like, GTFO, kid. you just screwed up our simulator.
They also have the other Zero Jankum Pog thing that I said I was going to mention. When the doctor tells Zero, your organic body might fall apart, but we can build some pretty cool synthetic stuff these days, and Zero wants Jankum to design it.
Yeah, that was very cool. It's gonna create a new sort of bond between them, and interestingly puts Jankum in a role of less of a engineer and almost more of a doctor sort of role. But he's like a medical engineer, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like sometimes Dr. Crusher works on Data, but also Geordi too. It's like sometimes you have to have an engineer doctor team up to help certain patients.
Sometimes Dr. McCoy works on photon torpedoes,
doctors do surgery on torpedoes, and engineers can construct things for medical patients.
I within the fiction, I think I kind of like it all.
I liked the shot in the mess hall of it's when Dal is doing his log entry at the beginning of the episode, and he's talking about how like we made it back to Voyager and everything seems different, but maybe we are the ones who changed while we're gone. But there's like this fun moment where Dal's having a good time with Gwen eating together in the mess hall, and in the background you see Janeway and Chakotay they just look so happy to be back in each other's company. And whether you want to believe that they're lovers or just like have like a really like strong platonic love bond thing going on, either way it works well, but it made me happy to see that.
Visually, they are certainly framed by two young kids in some state of love, and so it feels intentional. I certainly, like you said, lots of ammo for those who.
It is intentionally ambiguous.
Right.
is what it is.
Yep. I like intentional ambiguity very often, actually.
Yeah, it's a great use of it. But we get the distress call from Iltheron, and it turns out Essentia is has just like this whole time, all these episodes we haven't checked in on her. She's been building up her forces, and now we have the very menacing Rev 1. We have the Rev 12 was the diviner ship in season 1. Now like the Rev 1 is even more massive.
Yeah, like I said, this gave off sort of Narada vibes, and immediately like just starts draining them pretty brutally, and forcing what they launch both Protostar and ultimately Delta Squadron to try and figure out something.
Or Nova Squad. You keep calling them Delta Squadron,
Oh
but
my
Nova
god, yeah, you're
Squadron.
right.
Uh,
You didn't correct me until now, Fatheree. Let's go back and edit and post.
I was already like mentally editing.
I'll here I'm saying Nova Squadron. There's a nice clean read of it. Just patch that over for me. But yeah, they you know what I liked about this sequence. This was a pretty cool and suspenseful action sequence. Um, Essentia has her own fighter ships out there challenging them, and they have to. They just desperately need to get Voyager they need to stop that beam that's draining all its power, and I think they initially sent out the Nova Squadron to try and blow up the device, blow up the
Where
weapon.
to get the readings on the
Oh,
weapon system, because
they got to scan it.
because Voyager wasn't close enough to scan it, so those are the only things fast enough to get to it. And then the Lurian character, like Morn, we find out in this episode is a girl, which I missed that the first time I watched this.
Oh,
But
I don't. I think I missed that too.
because when they're injured, Zero says, "I'll take her to sickbay."
Okay, right on.
Grom is the name of that character, not to be confused with a Grum of Ossicod in
And I
Kelleran
noticed that they
culture.
they made a classic Morn style joke about cut the chatter or whatever.
But Grom has like some like grunts, and I guess Morn did too on occasion. But yeah, there actually is like a Grom like voice actor credited with like the grunts. Um, but it was kind of a funny sequence. I mean, it wasn't really funny, but it was funny to me when Grom is hurt and Zero is going to take her to sickbay, and then the Nova Squadron kids are like, "We're down a pilot," and Chakotay just kind of like nods his head at Dal. Is it like Chakotay is trying to get rid of it? He's like, "I don't want to bring him back on the Protostar. I don't want him to be part of this. I want Gwen as my number one. I want Gwen to be my first officer. I don't want this Dal. I don't think that's actually the case. I think it was more like
No,
Chakotay. Chakotay is looking out for Dal, and he's like, here's an opportunity for this guy who's struggling with some security issues. Like, here's a good opportunity for him here's something he can do. He likes to go fast. We just need him to get in this thing and go fast.
right. I can only assume he also he wasn't doing it just for Dal, but also thought that he might be the right person for the job. Um, and yeah, they have to once they get out there, they have to kind of change up their tactics a few times. Essentia is. I forget what the deal was, but like, was it that the pilots were like too fast? They were just like her counter pilots were keeping them away from it, and so they're like, okay, we'll run interference. Protostar crew, you guys do the scan while we kind of keep the fighters.
it ends up like they're not able to pull it off, and Voyager gets loses shields at the end of the episode. But so it's kind of all for nothing. But it was like some like exciting action.
Well,
uh
like it's the all for nothing thing. Dramatically, it's for sure served a purpose, which was it looked like they were about to pull out a Death Star one
yeah.
kind of thing, where there's like, okay, they finally got all their ducks in a row. Voyager fires the quantum torpedoes. We're supposed to have this moment where it's like, oh, badass! They bloodied the nose of Essensia's giant ship. And then these like the fighter ships just form some kind of shield, and it just it absorbs all of the quantum torpedoes, and they're like Essensia's like, what now?
What do you think of the Mark II Nova flyers and like their design? I can be weirded out of like starfighters in my Star Trek. It's not something I'm I want too much. But these things, I feel like they're okay. I can get behind them.
What was the Mark One? Is that what Wes and crew were training in?
I assume.
So
I thought
I don't.
these things looked a little weird when they show them in season one. When they first make it to San Francisco, we see some flying around. I was like, "What the hell are those things?" But like now, like this episode is like, "Oh yeah, these things are designed by Tom Paris." I was like, "Okay, yeah, yeah, he can design some weird looking stuff, so that's okay."
They look. I mean, they look cool. They didn't quite look Trek to me. They looked a little bit more like something that could be in any variety of video games, which have lots of cool looking ships in them. Um, and like you, Fatheree, I'm not big on fighter ships in Star Trek, but it's not like Prodigy is runs wild with it all the time, and certainly it's not like we haven't seen it before. We've saw fighter ships that were from the Kelpians helping them out the Discovery, and it's they've certainly shown at other times. So it's not like I don't believe they exist, but I do tend to favor
they're not a
the
Starfleet thing. They're not a Starfleet thing.
yeah. I like the equivalent of naval ships. I prefer that vibe. But yeah, I think they for sure looked cool. And when I heard Tom Paris's mention, I was like, oh yeah, that's cool, like that.
But it does feel very, very much like the other Star franchise. It does kind of feel like, okay, Dal, this is like your Luke Skywalker moment.
Right, right. Well, yeah, for sure. That was what it felt like. Only it was like if Luke Skywalker was denied.
There was some fun Jenkum Pog dialogue in this one. I liked, you had mentioned, Dave, you had said that you kind of felt sorry for Jenkum because he was trying so hard to be like by the book and be like, polite and everything. And when Captain Chakotay on the Protostar, he says something like, "We're only going to get one shot at this," and Jenkum is like, "Do you have to be so direct? I mean, recalibrating the deflector, sir," or whatever. But I kind of like that that like the old Jenkum was coming out at like an
Yeah,
inappropriate moment, but then like he caught himself.
yeah. I believe removed from the Starfleet prep courses and stuff like that, he has reverted back to a bit of old school Jankum. My favorite line in this, I think, was actually like a badass line for Dreadnought and for the bad guys. It's when Janeway says any attack on our vessel will be considered an act of war, and Dreadnought just goes acknowledged.
I loved
Like
that.
that's some Terminator kind of style harshness.
There's a cool moment like that in the anime movie Gundam Wing Endless Waltz, where a character says acknowledged, and almost like the exact same kind of framing, but it made me think of that.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I like this. This is I mentioned the sort of the tail end of the first half of the season, episode 10, kind of felt like their Empire Strikes Back, the all-purpose term for a adventure franchise that where the second part out has the bad guys win, kind of, and this was like another version of that. They kind of they showed our crew going through and getting things reined in. Figuring some of the stuff out. They got Chakotay, and then man, the bad guys seem like they are much better prepared than we could have expected. To the point of having not only this badass fleet that they've built up, but the Traveler.
Yeah, so Will Wheaton captured. I thought was a cool reveal to end on. He didn't overstay his welcome in episodes 9 and 10. He showed up, he was big and impressive, and then did not overstay, and then left, and then 5 episodes later he's back, but as a prisoner. He's like the princess in the castle. We got to go rescue him. He's no longer here to like help the kids. He's now like the objective. He's like the MacGuffin of the story.
Yeah, I like that because I mean, aside from allowing the kids to take center stage, you don't want a godlike alien solving all the problems for him, but it means he gets to continue to be part of the story. Yeah, this is cool on a meta level. It's cool for Will Wheaton, but it's also cool because this is moving forward the lore of the Travelers
Mm-hmm.
and the and it also shows you that they're not gods. They try to help out, but they can be defeated. And I have no idea how the kids are going to try and win him back, and I'm excited to see what comes up and whether he's still got something in him to help them out, or how any of that plays out.
Yeah. So, Dave, we have 5 more episodes of Prodigy to talk about next week, and then who knows if or when we'll get more Prodigy. I hope we haven't seen the last of these characters, and I'm sure someday we'll get more of them. I would just prefer it to be within, I want to see more Dow and Murph and Zero in 2 years, not in 20 years. But
Right.
never say like Wesley Crusher came back. Like never say never. But
Yeah, and like didn't come back in just a cameo like in Picard, but came back in a role. That's damn cool.
and how significant is that though? Like if you're doing a all ages show called Star Trek Prodigy, about, and the entire premise is about like these teenagers who want to get into Starfleet.
Yeah.
It's called Prodigy. It's like
Yeah.
you have to tie that into Wesley Crusher. That's
You know,
you got to do it.
it's funny, Fatheree. I hadn't even actually considered that, but that makes so much sense, and it's, I was just like, oh, neat. They decided randomly to use Wesley Crusher, but I was like, oh, right, no, he could practically be considered the inspiration for the show. So yeah, that's a good point.
This is meant to happen. We've been waiting on it since 1987 when Gene first created this the prodigy of TNG with young Wes.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into those 5 more episodes next. We won't say like the final 5 of Prodigy, but the next 5 of Prodigy
Final
next
five
week.
of season 2. Yeah.
But I will say this: that and I know you haven't seen it yet, so I won't say anything in detail. But those next 5 episodes will end the season in a way that I think is a great setup for a season 3 or a movie or something. But if it is
Okay.
the end, if it is like it is a perfect 40 episode story.
Good. Yeah. Like it's like I said when we were doing our what do we want to see in this season thing, and like it was hard for me to have something I didn't want to see. I was like, please don't do this, because they came through so hard, and yeah, I'm honestly not surprised at all that they pulled it off. But I'm certainly looking forward to seeing them do it.
Well, uh, we'll be back next Friday to talk about those final 5 episodes, but I do want to, before we sign off tonight, just talk about our Star Trek bingo card, because Prodigy writer-producer Aaron J. Walke bragged about how this season of Prodigy would reference every existing Star Trek show or movie. I was like, okay, well, someone should actually like try to keep up with that, try to keep score on that. But I think last week I said that they had covered pretty much everything, but a few of the movies. And I don't know, Dave, have you seen anything that references Strange New Worlds in the 15 episodes of Prodigy season 2 that we've talked about?
Has anything done a little beep beep thing like Pike's chair?
That would technically be like a TOS callback, wouldn't it?
I
It
guess
hasn't had, the
so.
chair has not been in Strange New
Oh, you're
Worlds.
right. They showed it. If anything, they showed it in Disco. No, not immediately. Not immediately.
But we did get I think some Star Trek Into Darkness stuff here. We had like some tribble experimentation. That's a Star Trek Into Darkness thing. The super blood came out of the tribble in that
Mm-hmm.
movie. We also get I didn't cross it off of the bingo card, but Star Trek Generations, the makeshift burial thing for a fallen Starfleet comrade that outranks you. That was very similar to like Picard and Kirk in Generations, what they did with Adric. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so we got that, but there was some in these episodes, that picture of Chakotay's protostar crew. There was a Zindi, a sloth Zindi from season 3 of Enterprise, and an Adosian like Eric's the 3-armed dude in the animated series. They mentioned when Crusher and Janeway are talking to each other, they mentioned the Shinzon incident, the Boothby supernova. They named it after the gardener. So
yeah.
So I haven't seen anything from Star Trek V, Star Trek VI, or Strange New Worlds. So if we can point those out in anything, or if they come up in the next 5 episodes, then I'll say that is everything accounted for. But so far, I don't know. I haven't come across anything that seems like a direct reference to Star Trek V, Star Trek VI, or Strange New Worlds.
If we hadn't already crossed off Trek 09, then I would have felt the initial arrival of Asensia's big ship certainly visually echoed the Narada's.
It's
arrival.
very Narada-esque, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, like clearly they are checking off a lot of boxes here. We'll see if we can finish it out. And if not, we'll have to just ask, hey Aaron, could you tell us 1 or 2 examples of for any of those, and maybe he'll be kind to us.
I bet we can find them though. I bet we can find them next week. But also, Dave and I will have a big announcement next week about the future of Tex-Trek. But in the meantime, I'm very excited to finish off season 2 of Prodigy, and then in 2 weeks I'll be in Vegas at Star Trek Las Vegas. But after that, we'll have to do some season 2 retrospective and talk about the entire season as a whole. So I'm looking forward to that in a couple of weeks. But come back next week for the final 5 episodes of season 2. And until then, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.